I want to just take the last 10 minutes of our time real quick just to get us in the right mindset in terms of how to take an idea and turn it into reality, and really give you an example of what we've done here in Romana. So next slide. So we'll do a quick case study. Like I said, this is the project we highlighted this time when we were down in the Dominican Republic. So if you look there at the top left corner, those are actually menstruation pads, reusable menstruation pads. And they're actually made by a nonprofit organization called Days for Girls that's based in the U.S. And what they do is they provide the actual materials for to make these pads, and then we distribute them to areas of need, essentially. So to give you a little bit of background about this, next slide, please. We'll do the objective. So to give you a little bit of background about it, our thought was, having gone down to the DR for multiple times, and we realized, education is very important. We always talk about family planning, but there's a huge knowledge gap in actually teaching children, especially young girls, about puberty, their changing bodies, and really have the resources that go with it. I think a lot of times when you do developmental work, when you go down, you say, okay, it's all about family planning, HIV/AIDS, STDs, and that type of stuff, but you kind of really miss this this target population in the middle. So we said, what can we do to address this issue? So our objective for this time around is to say, well, we want to address this issue, and specifically because we had partnered with this organization called Days for Girls, we felt that we were going to push forward the vision of all women deserve a dignified access to dignified feminine hygiene. And so we wanted to do that by providing education and then resources, essentially. So the setting, clearly, we had one very invigorated volunteer group. We ran things through the mobile medical clinic, and then we partnered through Good Samaritan Hospital, which is the hospital that we work with in the Dominican Republic. And then we also had our partners at Days for Girls International, which is the group that supplied these pads. So next slide. So basically, knowing that that was our vision, basically saying that that's what's important for us, or that's what we hope to do, we really had to define what are our values. What is it that's important to us that will make this meaningful for us as the volunteers who are doing this? So we realized what's important to us is we really want to take advantage of our local partners. So we don't want to recreate something when we're there. We want to say what's already existing, and then how do you supplement, how do you augment that? That way we can do the second thing that's important to us is providing that consistent message. You heard Lawrence talk about it before, but we really want to be consistent in what we're saying, because that way every child hears the same message over and over, so it's not like you're promoting confusion because they heard you say one thing and another team say something else. And then we think that by doing this, it can help us create a more impactful, more sustainable change. And so knowing that those are our values, we decided, okay, how do we design an intervention around this? So next slide. So, of course, before we can design an intervention, we have to ask ourselves, what are our counter stories? What are the potential challenges? Some of our challenges is, basically everything you said. What is the true education need, right? So if we're saying our goal is to say we want to provide education about personal hygiene, what's truly needed? And then two, if we have these great, reusable pads that in theory make sense, you can reuse them, you don't have to spend money to buy alternative, feminine hygiene products, it's more cost effective, but really, would they be used? Meaning, is it an acceptable alternative? Do you have community buy-in, as we just talked about? And then are they being used appropriately? It's one thing to give people these pads, but then if you don't use it the way they're meant to be used, then is it really an effective intervention? And then what are some barriers to that? Well, we talked about cultural, but and we also talked about how are we teaching it? There is clearly a language barrier, so we're teaching through interpreters. Are they medical interpreters? Do they know what we're talking about? And then how do you want to teach them? Is it more effective to teach one-on-one, in small groups, in a big setting? And I think it's very variable depending on who you're working with. And then say that all that goes well and they accept this. They say, okay, we really like this idea of reusable pads. Then what happens when they run out? Can they get additional supplies? And then the other barrier that we found out when we were down there is we unintentionally created this bag phenomenon. Right? So what I mean by that is you saw how the pads came in these nice little handcrafted bags. And so then the question is, are people engaging you because they want a bag that looks nice and it's more of a status symbol, or are they really interested in the education and the tools that you're providing? So next slide. So our outcomes in this pilot project were pretty simple. We provided family planning and puberty education at 5 of these villages. We did both individual and small group settings. In total, we distributed only 42 kids because we really wanted to focus it on people who had a need for the kids, right? And so in the process of this, we realized that, hey, a lot of times women already have the resources to get disposable pads, and so do they really need it? And so we were trying to focus on really giving out the kits to people that we thought would use it. And then the challenge being, is that the right environment for them to use it in? So essentially, the bottom line is we generated a lot of initial enthusiasm. The community loved it. The hospital thought, this is amazing. We'd really love to scale this up. So they're asking us now, what can we do to really make this more impactful? Because it seems like, at least initially, we went out, we taught, we filled an area of need for them, provided the resources, so how do we scale this up? So we said, before we can really get to ways to scale this up, we wanted to figure out what do we need to consider. So again, what's the need? Where do you going to focus this initiative, right? So if we say we want to do the small business models, sell them to local partners, then that's the focus right there. But maybe if you're saying education is a need, you have to focus on it at a school level, and then kind of take your small business model, but say, give to the schools and let the schools sell it, so then they can fund money back into their school system, and then you're really promoting education. How do you get the community invested? Maybe going through schools is one way to do it, or do you go through other local NGOs that are already there doing family planning initiatives, so they have that buy-in with their local, with the BPADS already. And then, most importantly, once you decide all this, who is going to be enacting this locally on the ground, right? Like, you don't want to be the one who basically goes and says, here's an idea, but it only works if I'm here. Like, that's not going to be sustainable at all. You really want to find a way to really get that local buy-in. So really ask yourself, who's going to be invested to teach and to promote this idea? So next slide. So essentially, things to consider, so that's the case study right there. So I'll wrap up in the next minute and a half. Basically, things to consider when we're taking an idea and turning it into reality. I love these quotes. I'm a huge quote person. I love what Einstein says. If at first the idea is not absurd, then there's no hope for it. So basically saying, it's okay, be bold, think outside the box, allow people to laugh at you. I'm a pediatrician by trade, so I need to quotes by Disney. So get a good idea, stay with it, dog it, and work it until it's done right. So it's saying, come up with an idea, and then really be persistent about it. Don't just give up because someone says, oh, yeah, that's such a bad idea, it's not going to work. And then sometimes I think of myself as a Renaissance man, totally I'm not. Sometimes I even forget to shave, but my manager said it best. The greater danger for most of us lies in not setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. Right? So basically, aim high, dream big, go big. Next slide. So just parting words in terms of when you're thinking about developing an idea. I think of it as BFD. No, it doesn't mean what you guys think of it as big effing deal, but really something to believe, something to feel, and then something to do. So that's really what I want you guys to take home from this, is that if you're trying to develop an idea and create it into something more tangible, really remember something to believe, something to feel, something to do. Last slide. So, final thoughts. Hong, Chuck E. Cheese's, you know what the connection is between these two? So Pong Chuck E. Cheese's, Nolan Bushnell is the guy who actually founded both of these, and I think he said it best. Everyone who's ever taken a shower has an idea. It's the person who gets out of the shower, dries off, and does something about it who makes a difference. So just keep that in mind, because I think that's why we're all here today. We're all very passionate, and we care about mental health issues and how that might be poverty in the Hamilton area. So really, we're the ones who got up this morning. I don't know if I dried off, but I did get up, got out of the shower, and so we're here. So let's make the best of the rest of today and really work on coming up with some good ideas. And so